Hi there guys, and welcome back once again to the channel. Those of you that have been around for quite a while will know that I'm quite a lover of music, and I love going to live music events and gigs and concerts and everything. And I thought, I've never really done top 10 videos before. I've done tag videos and stuff like that, but I've never really done top 10 videos because I like my music and I like to talk about it and sharing it with other people and stuff, and hearing other people's views and opinions and thoughts. I thought I'd start doing it, so where better place to start than my top 10 favourite bands of all time. So in no particular order, I'm going to start off with, well, they are my favourite band, and again, people will know this from the channel who've been here for a while. Les and Jake are my favourite band. I mean, I've got my first tattoo was a Les and Jake tattoo. I had one of their songs as my intro for a while on the diary. They're like the first proper band that I really got into. I think a lot of time, like when you're young and you're growing up, you kind of hear lots of different music and songs and artists and everything, and you don't usually, more often than not, I'm not saying you always do, but you don't always latch on to one artist or one band or whatever. But I think Les and Jake were that first band that I really properly latched onto. And it was coming up, it must have been 9 or 10, it must have been 9 when I heard my first Les and Jake song. It was my brother had done like a mixtape, because like before that I'd only really listened to like pop music and stuff like that, and I don't think my brother was happy about that, so he did me a mixtape, and it had loads of stuff on. It had like Blink-182 and like Nirvana and a lot of relevant kind of pop punk kind of rock music of that time, and Les and Jake were on there, and I believe it was Gainesville Rock City, and I heard that and I was just like, horns? Saxophone? In rock music? What is this? And I just got hooked from there, and the first album I listened to was Boundaries and Boundaries, which was amazing. The first album that I actually got was Anthem. Oh no, the first one was Boundaries and Boundaries. I mean, they've been going over 25 years now. They just celebrated 25 years last year, and they're one of these bands that for me personally just seems to be getting better with age. I mean, they arguably, a lot of their more popular albums were sort of in the mid to late 90s, but for me they've been progressing and progressing. I mean, the last sort of full release that they brought out just showed that they can still do it now, and they're still doing it. And the most important thing, and the thing that I love most about them, is their live shows. I've been going to see them since 2005, and I've seen them over 10 times, and each time is just the most amazing experience. You go to a Les and Jake gig, you're going to have a good time. I defy anyone to go to a Les and Jake gig, whether you've seen them before, whether you like the music or whatever. I defy you to go to a Les and Jake gig and not at least come out with a smile on your face, because it's so much fun. They have so much interaction from the crowd. They're great, like between each other. You know, they are genuine kind of friends and get along and everything. And it just all works perfectly, and they sound just as good live as what they do on albums and on CDs and everything, which is just that's a good sign of a good band for me personally. Next up, we've got Area 11. Now, Area 11 are somewhat smaller band, probably not as well known, but are starting to creep the way up, starting to make their way up in the music world, and I'm really proud of them. I've been listening to them since around, I would say 2013, 14, I would say. I first came across them through YouTube. Basically, two of the members used to do a lot of things with the Yogscast. Those of you that are aware of the Yogscast on YouTube, I'm sure you are. They basically used to work for them, and then it was through that they used some of their music on videos. I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good. So then I started checking them out, and I was like, yeah, I really like these. These are awesome. They're a band who has been labelled with so many different genres. There's been like alternative rock, pop punk, metalcore. Something to do with, because there's quite a Japanese influence in what they do, so I think they like created their own genre as well within that. But they're so great, and to see them progress from like their earlier stuff as well has been really nice to see. A real proper maturity there in the music. The first full album release, All the Lights in the Sky, was a great album, and really was, and there was more of a Japanese kind of influence, I feel, on that album, but was really enjoyable, and it was a bit kind of, there were some songs with some, definitely some deep meanings. I mean, Sparkles is a great writer, he's a great musician, a great writer, and they all are within their own rights. But there's always deep meanings behind everything that he does, and they do talk about that in some of the videos where they're talking about the songs. But there's a bit more kind of light-heartedness to that. But the most recent release, Modern Synthesis, which came out, I think it was 2016 it came out, it's so, it's definitely a deeper and darker kind of feel to it, but I absolutely love it. It's like one of my favourite albums. Again, they're great guys. I mean, I first saw them, they played at the Fenton pub in Leeds, I believe it was 2015, either 2014 or 2015, can't remember exactly when it was, and I think there must have been, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 people there. It was a very small intimate gig, but it didn't matter that there wasn't that many people there, because it just felt like that once they started to perform, it's like they were performing to hundreds of people. Going from seeing them there to the most recent time that I saw them was at Slam Dunk Festival last year, and playing in front of, you know, hundreds there. They're really progressing, and I think the biggest they did a tour last year where I think they performed at I can't remember the venue in London, but I think there was like a couple of thousand people there. So from that Fenton pub gig to playing in front of like over 1,000 people, shows the progression, shows that they're starting to make it, and yeah, it's really great to see a band progress that way. Next up, we've got Green Day. I don't really have to say too much about Green Day. I think people are aware of them and who they are and what they do. But yeah, I mean, Green Day again are one of the sort of earlier bands that I really sort of properly got into when I was growing out of that pop kind of phase of being a young kid. And I can't remember what the first song that I heard from them was. It was probably Good Riddance, I imagine. But I suppose I didn't really properly get into them. I always think that the most influential time of listening to music is like when you just sort of first gone up to high school. Maybe when you get to around the age of 12, 13 or something. Obviously a lot of changes, you know, a lot of things going on in your brain and your head and everything, and I think the music that you're listening to at that time can be quite important and quite influential. And it was at that time that they brought out American Idiot, and that album for me, just every single song, I mean, it was one of those albums that I would just listen to on repeat again and again and again. And it was just kind of, there's that story there, there's a story element to what they do. You know, I mentioned in a recent video that I'm not massively into the lyrics and I don't always read too much into them. It's more about the music, but I must admit that American Idiot was something that really, I listened to every single lyric and I learned every single lyric. And I just, yeah, I think like Boulevard of Broken Dreams was that first obsessive song that I would just put on repeat, because I absolutely loved everything about that. But every song just kind of merged into each other. But yeah, I mean, you listen to the earlier stuff. I mean, for me, Dookie is my favourite album, and a lot of Green Day fans will probably agree there. And they're just a band that you can put on a Green Day song, and it's kind of easy listening. After I've made sort of a lot of the newer stuff and the later stuff that they've been doing, I haven't been getting on board as much, but like I say, it's just one of those bands I'm always going to kind of have that feeling for, and I'm always going to be able to just pop on very easily in the car, listen to Dookie, or even put International Super Hits on, and you know, the best of from that era of Green Day, and I'm going to be very happy with that. On a similar note, Offspring, again started listening to them around the time of kind of getting into Green Day and bands like that. I think my brother gave me, or did a copy of Americana and Conspiracy of One, and I think I'd heard a few Offspring songs before, and then he copied these albums for me. I mean, he bought them and gave me them legally. Both those albums are so important to me. I absolutely love them to bits. I can put those on, and again, it's just every song that comes on, I just don't have to think about it. I just start singing along to them. And again, it's just the thing about Offspring, especially around that time, is although there's in some songs there's a deepness to the lyrics and meanings, there's also that really fun, playful side, and it's just, you can't help but smile with some of the songs, especially like with Americana. I think Conspiracy of One is a little bit kind of subdued and a bit deeper with some of the songs there, but Americana is just fun. It's just pure fun. And even before that, an album I really love is Ixnay on the Hombre, which I think sometimes gets overshadowed a little bit, but I mean, that is a very kind of darker, deeper album. But there's so many great songs on there, and really kind of pumping songs, and the music is just, it's just there, you know, they're all really great. It's nothing outstanding or legendary in the music, there's nothing majorly new there, but it's just done so perfectly, and Dexter's voice is just so recognisable. As soon as you know an Offspring song when it comes on the radio or on TV or whatever, it's such a recognisable voice. And even the most recent album, Days Gone By, I know that a lot of you true Offspring fans and everything like that will kind of say, oh, I'll stick to the old stuff, but I really enjoyed Days Gone By. I think it's a great album, there's still some great stuff on there. And yeah, Offspring, I don't really have a bad word to say about them. Next up, we've got Sponge. Sponge is a band that I'm actually quite disappointed in myself for only really discovering in 2016. As a big ska fan and a big ska punk and pop punk fan, I'd never heard of Sponge up until 2016, and they've become one of my favourite bands of all time within that period. So much so that they're kind of a close second to Less Than Jake for me, and they're just so not well known either, which is crazy. And I don't want to say it's disappointing, because it's actually quite nice when you go to a Sponge gig. You know, you've got a core fan base there. And it's such an enjoyable experience. Again, very much like a Less Than Jake, you have a good time when you see Sponge live. It's just impossible not to. They are a ska punk band, but they're quite different in the fact that they have no horn section, which I was like, well, how can there be ska if there's no horns? And it's quite a weird thing. When they were first introduced to me, I was like, oh yeah, it's ska. I was like, oh awesome. It's like, but there's no horn section. I was like, yeah, that's not going to work. But you know what? It just perfectly does. You know, not every single song has a ska element to it, but the ones that do, you've got the upstroke on the guitar, you've got the awesome bass lines, and you've got the lyrics there as well, and it just works. The most well-known song, Kicking Pigeons, does have a horn section, but that's the only song ever. So whenever they do that live, the audience has to do the horn, basically. Do the horn? That's a wrong sentence to say. Out of all the bands that I'm mentioning here, if I can recommend one band that you go away and listen to, and you're into that kind of music, it's Sponge, because they are so great. And what's great about them is there's the fun element there, where they don't take as much, I don't want to say they don't take as much pride, but there's not as much care with the lyrics. So much so that they have a song called Lyrical Content, where they actually go on about that. Because you look at some of the songs that they do, I mean, like I say, their main song is called Kicking Pigeons, where the chorus is kicking pigeons in the park. They've got a song about threesomes, but yeah, Lyrical Content is an interesting song. I'm pretty sure they must be taking not taking the piss out of themselves, taking the piss out of people who have clearly had a go saying, oh, the lyrics make no sense. But in Lyrical Content, there is the line, it may not be up there with J.R.R. Tolkien, but at least you don't need a PhD to understand what I mean. If you're the kind of guy who reads between the lines, you'd probably drive a Volvo car and read Financial Times. I love that. I just think it's brilliant. They're a band that's been around since I think 1994, 95, and when you go see them live, it is essentially a bunch of middle-aged men just having the fucking time of their lives on stage, playing music that they clearly adore doing to people who absolutely love them to pieces back, and it's just a laugh, it's just fun. The last time I went to see them live was at the Key Club in Leeds. It was pretty much a sold out gig, and I've never felt so knackered by the end of a gig before. It was just constant fun, constant skanking around. We got to speak to them after. They're just really nice, decent, genuine, down-to-earth guys. They know they're not up there on the mainstream, and I don't think they give a shit that they are either. And they're just great guys. You get to meet other fans as well. It's a really nice, cool fan base. So yeah, if I can recommend just one band to listen to from this, it's definitely Sponge. Next up, the Eagles. The Eagles are, for me, a very underrated band. And I know that might sound like an odd thing to say because they are so well known and they've been so popular and a successful band as well. But I often see them very unfairly portrayed by, I want to say, music snobs. I really hate music snobs, and you see them write things as like, oh, if the Eagles didn't have the harmonies, they'd be nothing and everything. And I was like, well, you could say that about a lot. That's like saying, oh, well, if Eminem couldn't rap, then he wouldn't be anything. If Elvis couldn't have sung as well as he did, then he wouldn't have been very successful. It's just a nonsense comment. But I mean, I've literally seen people say that before. The Eagles were all about the harmony, which in itself is wrong. But if we're going to take that as a statement, it's just pathetic and it's ridiculous. When you do listen to the harmonies of all the members together, and I mean, I know they've swapped and changed quite a few of them over the years, but it is so spot on. And in their documentary, The History of the Eagles, it shows them doing it before they go on stage, just doing it a cappella, just them, no instruments or anything, just singing all together, and it just goes right through. It is the most amazing sound ever. So vocally, they are so impressive. And then you look at them instrumentally, they're all amazing. I mean, Joe Walsh, one of the most amazing guitar players ever. You've got Don Henley, who is an amazing singer and drummer at the same time. You've got Timothy B. Schmidt on the bass, who is an amazing bass player and an amazing singer. Of course, Glenn Fry, who very sadly we lost a couple of years ago. Again, an amazing singer and an amazing guitar player as well. And just, you know, lyrically between them, if I can suggest one thing to watch, The History of the Eagles DVD is one of the most amazing musical documentaries that I've ever seen. It documents the whole history of the band, you know, from the 70s, going through the breakup in the early 80s and then coming back again in the 90s. It's got footage of them from the very beginning. It's got them being very frank, very open, very honest. Everything in there, it's like everything is just laid bare. And it's just very interesting to see. It kind of goes into the music industry and how bands must have had to go through shit to get to places, and yeah, it's a very interesting watch. I just love them. I really, whenever I'm feeling down, like really down, if I put like the best of album on that I've got, it calms me down so much. I just love their songs. A lot of them can be, when I'm feeling down, they have a lot of sad songs. But it kind of has that reverse effect because the music is just so lovely, and the singing of usually either Don or Glenn, it's just very soothing and very calming and relaxing. I was very lucky actually to go see them when they last performed at Leeds Arena in 2014, I think it was, early 2014, and live they sound so amazing. Like I say, those harmonies, it's not just you know, again, nowadays you get a lot of manufactured sounds and everything, and something that is made in the studio does not sound the same live. The Eagles live are just, that is the Eagles. It's not manufactured from a studio, it is just them pure talent on the stage. So it is very sad that, you know, Glenn is no longer with us and you'll never get that proper Eagles experience again. I know they're still doing touring, actually funnily enough with Glenn's son, which I think is great, and if they were to come over to the UK again, I would definitely go see them. But yeah, they're just one of the best. They're one of the greats of all time for me. Real Big Fish are probably the funnest band that I've got on this list. Real Big Fish, I probably started listening to late noughties, I would have thought. They're a band that I'd always kind of heard of, and I'd heard little bits of, and obviously, you know, the ska band similar to Les and Jake, but I never, for some reason, I don't know why, but I just never really latched onto them. You know, I probably heard Sell Out, I imagine, but it wasn't until, like I say, late noughties that I really started listening to them, and they're just so great. They're just one of those bands that you can just, and I keep using this as a thing, but you can just put it on and they cheer you up no end. He's amazing. I mean, the majority of the songs are about getting wasted and heartbreak, funnily enough. But again, it's put to that upbeat ska rhythm, and it's got the horn section in there, and they're just fantastic. They've done some great covers like Monkey Man and Brown Eyed Girl. And like I say, you've got the classics there, you know, well, Take On Me as well, early classics like Sell Out, but again, they're a band that keep releasing stuff. I mean, Candy Coated Fury, that I think came out like 2012, 2013 or something, there's some, you know, some of the songs on there are some of my favourite songs that they've done. So although they're a band that's been going since the 90s, it's been really great to see kind of a re-emergence of ska bands over the past sort of 5 to 10 years really, and I think it's great because it's such a fun genre of music and there's such a good positive vibe behind from it. But yeah, Real Big Fish are great. I've seen them numerous times now, various festivals, and seen them on their own tours and everything, and again they're just great fun. They put on such a great show. Can't remember the bloody lead singer now, but he's a great front man, and he's surrounded by equally funny, entertaining guys. And you know, at Slam Dunk last year, to have them and Less Than Jake and Bowling for Soup and like Mike Handy all on the same bill, and Zebrahead, all bands that kind of know each other and get on and, you know, perform together and stuff, was just like a dream come true for me. And yeah, Real Big Fish, again, like Less Than Jake, you go to one of their gigs and you're gonna have a good time and you're gonna come out smiling and hear some pretty awesome music at the same time. Next up we have The Used. The Used are a band that I probably started listening to kind of when I'd gone into a bit of went into a rock and like kind of pop punk kind of phase, and mainly listened to Less Than Jake and everything, and then kind of the emo phase hit my high school and I was kind of in that group of, I wasn't kind of fully committed to it, but I was just on the outskirts of it. And that was around the time that The Used were kind of really making it, and I think they just had self-titled release on, maybe it was In Love and Death that came out, I can't remember, but my mates were listening to it and like, Chris, listen to this, and I think the first song I heard was A Taste of Ink, and again that became one of my obsessive songs that I would just listen to on repeat, on repeat, on repeat, and I just fell in love with Bert's voice. I mean, this is back when he was, yeah, I mean, he's got a great voice as it is, but he used to do screaming as well, and that just added a little extra something to some of the songs. It wasn't in every song, but in just certain parts of certain songs it just really made it. And then I listened to In Love and Death, and that album is, well, it's sort of basically one of my all-time favourites. It's very tragic really. I mean, Bert, who's the lead singer, has had quite a tragic life really. And that is kind of all laid to bear in that album. And again, like I say, around that kind of teenager time, and being, you know, when you're fully getting aware of your emotions and feelings and everything, listening to something like that really had this kind of proper profound effect on me. And some of those songs on there are just him laid bare and everything just out there. I think back to Cut Up Angels from that song, and I mean, this is a song about his then partner, I don't know if they were married, his then pregnant partner, fortunately dying right after he'd said, "I wish you were dead." And like I say, he had a very tragic life, but this song is basically all based on that, and it's quite an upbeat kind of melody kind of song. It's quite, there's quite a jumpiness to it and everything, and it's that complete opposites just working perfectly together. And yeah, there's just something great about them. I mean, I went to see them, so it was anniversary of them starting, and they did two nights, one playing self-titled in full and one playing In Love and Death, and it was 2 nights in a row at O2 Academy in Leeds, and it's 2 of the greatest nights. I mean, Bert, like I say, he's a proper frontman. He does really great. He can't scream as much anymore because he damaged his vocal cords, and he's not been able to do that for quite a few years now. But he's still got an amazing voice, and the interaction again with the band and the crowd and everything. It's a proper emotional night, but it's a proper fun night as well. And they're just, yeah, they're a great band. They're still releasing new stuff. The latest album that's come out is really great. I'll still have a particular love for those first 2 albums personally, but yeah, they're definitely up there as one of my favourite bands that I can just put on again when I'm feeling a bit down, and it kind of lifts me up. So Avenged Sevenfold are probably like my favourite heavy metal band in terms of consistent albums and songs that I can just listen to and enjoy. I don't have to think too much about. I can just put it on and be happy with and content with. Avenged Sevenfold are that for me. I think they're fantastic and very, very consistent in their songwriting and music making, and that's despite going through tragedy. In 2009 they lost their drummer and one of the co-founders of the band, the Rev, and you know, that must be such a very hard thing to go through. You know, someone who, you know, he wrote lyrics for the band, and he, like I say, was one of the co-founders, and he was the drummer. And they've carried on and still creating amazing music. I mean, that they released Nightmare after his death and dedicated that to him. I think it was the same year, or at least the year after that he died, that they released it. But yeah, you know, despite going through tragedy like that, they still continue to make this amazing music. And I mean, M Shadows, again, very similar to like Dexter from Offspring. When you hear that voice, you know when an Avenged Sevenfold song is coming on. It's such a unique and standout kind of voice. You know, some of the notes that he can hit and the length that he can hit them for. And there's just so much oomph to the songs. I mean, to me, like, Nightmare is probably one of my favourite. But then, you know, there's Hail to the King, there's self-titled, City of Evil, of course. And I mean, I think Beast and the Harlot must have been the first Avenged song that I heard. I remember playing it on Guitar Hero and just, oh my god, this is amazing. You know, the speed of the guitars and how well they're played as well, and the drum and just the beat and the melody, everything together, it just works perfectly. I actually saw them at Leeds Fest, and I think it was 2008. And unfortunately, M Shadow's voice completely just died on him. He got like a really bad infection. He got it like leading up, and they were playing Leeds first. And he tried so hard, and I think they did about 5 songs, and it just completely went on him, and they didn't even play it at Reading. It was so bad. So it was disappointing to kind of see them not at their best. But it was amazing all the same to again just see amazing music live on stage. And Avenged, for consistency, are definitely one of my favourite bands. And last but by no means least, we have Red Hot Chili Peppers. You know, I think my brother must have given me Balds and Boundaries by Les and Jake, and around the same time given me either Blood Sugar Sex Magic or Californication. And I can't remember which one it was, but I remember listening to it and just thinking, this is different. This is very unique. I'm not entirely sure what the guy's singing or what it's about, but I like it. And that's the thing about Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean, Anthony Kiedis is you know, very poetic in his lyrics, and when you read them, you know, there's some deep meanings there. But it doesn't always make sense, and you can't always tell what he's singing when you listen to a song. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because the music is fucking amazing, and it just makes sense anyway. That's what I mean in not reading too much into lyrics. I'm sure that isn't always what he wants from that. I'm sure that you know, there's probably a meaning to him. But I mean, that's what music is. It's kind of the meaning you get from it. You've got Flea on bass, who is the most amazing bass player. I mean, that's who I look up to, kind of someone who's wanting to learn and play bass. You know, being able to play like that is just so effortless to him, or he makes it look effortless anyway, and just so easy. And then you got Chad on drums, Will Ferrell on drums, who again probably one of the best drummers that, you know, in music. For a long time, or the biggest time where I was kind of really following the Chili's, we had the John Frusciante. I think I always get that wrong every time I pronounce it, but I mean, he's one of my favourite guitar players of all time. But the guy who I can't remember the name of right now, who's taken over, is just as good. And it's kind of been a bit of a seamless kind of switch, which is always good to see. But together, the music that comes together, and then the lyrics from Anthony as well, is just amazing. And like I say, I mean, those Blood Sugar Sex Magic and Californication, to me, are just gonna always be like some of the best albums in my eyes anyway. You know, and after that, By the Way, because again, that was around the time that I was really properly getting into music, so I'd listened to Red Hot Chili Peppers on these albums before, and then By the Way came out, and yeah, there was arguments of it being a bit more mainstream and kind of catering more to the masses, but I love that album so much. So many great songs on there. And then even on Stadium Arcadium, again, not the best really, but again, some great songs that came from that. I think there's so much to that band, and there's so much you could go into and say about them, but at the end of the day, they're a band that I could just listen to and put on, and again, just feel very happy with life, you know, just getting on with things. You know, Californication and Blood Sugar Sex Magic, for definite. There's songs that just make you smile, and and laugh, and then there's ones that kind of just make you stop and think a little bit. It's just that nice mixture there, and it's just great music to listen to. So we have it, guys. Those are my top 10 favourite bands of all time. Now what I've done is I've actually put this into a Spotify playlist, which I will put a link to in the below, and I've put 2 songs from every artist on there. So if you want to go check that out, if there's some bands that you've seen there that you've not heard before, do go check it out. Or if it's just bands that you agree with that you like, then it's just a fun little playlist out there, just 20 songs long. But by all means, let me know your kind of favourite bands in the comments below. Is there some that I've listed there that you agree with? Are there some that you really vehemently disagree with and absolutely hate with a passion? I'm sure there's some people out there that do. But yeah, it'd be great to get your thoughts and feelings on that, guys, and hearing what some of you guys listen to as well. So I will be doing some more top 10s, kind of music based, in the future. Let me know if there's any particular ones that you want me to do, or if there's other top 10s not relating to music that you want me to do. Certainly something I'm interested kind of getting into anyway. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and until next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all very soon.